Hello, I'm Diane, and I'm choosing this question here about a ninth grader who's 2 years behind. Says I hate the subject and I'm bad at it. Walk me through your first three lessons with them. Be specific about activities, your reasoning, your pedagogy, and how you'd integrate biblical truth. Okay, so I made some notes for this. It didn't sound like you actually wanted me to teach the lesson, but to more talk about all of those concepts. So let me know if you need me to like have somebody in and teach them. So first of all, I want to relate to them if they've told me those things that they hate math, and I want to market math and get them on the side so their brain can embrace the concepts and learn them. So I want to relate to them first of all and say, I mean, that's normal. We all know that feeling, right? You don't want to do something if you feel like you're bad at it. So that would be a normal feeling. Now, what do we do about those things that we have to do that we feel are pointless? We can try to understand why. We can create a better solution. I didn't talk about that because I do know how to do that for my own homeschooling. I know how to condense and shorten things. That's why in my application I wrote that my 14-year-old was taking calculus 3 in college and making an A in it because I did the research and the study to help them escalate it. So that would be an option, but I'm thinking that you want them to do the 4 years of math. So I took that approach. And I'm going to tell you a story because people like stories. So I'm going to tell them a story that hopefully will hold their interest. I had a ninth grader who was in my algebra class, a virtual algebra class, and he did not want to come to algebra because he was already a mechanic. So he could make more money by working on cars than coming to school, right? So it didn't make sense for him to come to algebra class. So what we did is we looked up occupational outlook handbook and the salary because that was his motivation was income. That's why he was choosing to work over uh, the school course. So we looked at how much a mechanic makes versus a mechanical engineer. And that helped him to be more interested. And by the way, I have a train in the background that I'm going to sum up my lessons with. I'll get to that as to why that's so. Okay, so there's something that a student might be able to relate to. What's the point? Is it really worth it? And then, of course, in this program, we get to take it to our faith. And how do we approach those things that we don't want to do? How do we take that power back, use it for the Lord? And so that we're not feel like a victim of all these things that we have to do. So I bring up the verse in Colossians that says, and I just brought up my notes here. This is not the way I would present it in a classroom, but these are my notes because my understanding is I'm supposed to talk about how and why, uh, and all. And so the Bible says, um, meaning in the Bible, meaning to perform all tasks, whether at work, home, or in daily life with dedication, sincerity, and enthusiasm as if serving Jesus Christ directly, not just for human masters or personal gain, but with the understanding that your ultimate reward and service are to God, not people. So if by faith you grasp that thought that God's going to reward you, you're doing it for Him. And of course, the love of Christ constrains us, just love alone for Jesus. But of course, He likes to give us good gifts and He promises a reward. So that would be one reason to feel like not a victim, that God will reward me for this, even if I don't have a personal understanding of why I should do this task, if it's not immoral, or against my conscience, then I can embrace it by faith. So, and you just never know when you're going to need things and how they will help you. So live to the fullest by learning all that you can. If you embrace life with that activity, with that um, with that approach, with that attitude, that's what I was trying to say, then not only can God reward you, but you'll have that you'll have learned things that perhaps you can use later in life. Certainly with math, I'll go on to talk about why those things are important. Also, just the act of learning is healthy for your brain. It dramatically strengthens existing connections and creates new, more efficient pathways between neurons, a process called neuroplasticity, which makes the brain work faster and better for that task. It also helps new neurons born in the hippocampus survive and integrate, especially with challenging learning. Think of it like paving and widening roads. So you're exercising your brain, and that in itself makes it worthwhile. Now, the world says that knowledge is power, but as Christians, we believe what the Bible says in Proverbs, that knowledge without wisdom puffs up. So you want to do your work as unto the Lord, but even the world acknowledges that there's power in knowledge. So we shouldn't be short to agree on the importance of knowledge. So it also gives you your life back. Like I mentioned before, now you're not just a victim of having to learn all these things, but, and why do I need to know it? Which is important to understand. What is the value? We're supposed to make the most of our time because the days are evil. How is this making the most of our time? I mean, that is a good question. And if they're thinking that way, then that's important. But the statement you wrote said that they're thinking that way because they feel bad at it. So let's take some simple concepts, let's break it down. And if you have positive thoughts filling your mind, then you can use all that space for embracing it. And it'll make it easier to learn. So also went on to talk about giving them tools where you're sitting on the world of knowledge. Let's use it. So I want to empower that. That is the internet. That's what I'm saying. I mean, when I was young, you had a book of encyclopedias, maybe a math book, an index. Let's use what we have in technology to help us learn and empower them to do that. That's one thing I remember from my master professor is that it's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing where to go to find out what you need to know. So I embrace that idea as an educator also. So math is problem solving. Here's another example of how I might appeal to them. Just problem solving is something that you're going to do all along. And one thing I teach in math is go from what you know to what you don't know to figure out what you don't know. And I'll explain that. But two of my children as adults tell me that they still use that concept. So figuring out problems in life. So you never know how that kind of problem solving can save you. All right. So I'll start with a simple problem. You say ninth grade, that's algebra. 2 years behind. They start algebraic concepts pretty early. So I just took finding an unknown, x plus 9 equals 12. The way I like to teach, which I don't so much demonstrate here as later, is I don't like to start telling them things if they already know it. I want to find out what they know. And I don't mind if when I ask them a question, they look it up in notes or online or whatever. But let's suppose we're not doing that. I am modeling it. Okay. So I'm going to model the thought process that they hear me thinking out loud, that critical thought. So if I were doing it that way, then I would say algebraically, the way you solve is to isolate x. So just think logically You want to isolate X because that's what you want to know. So what does that look like in math? It looks like X equals, because what is X? You want X alone. You know that X plus 9 equals 12, but what does X equal? So if we're just going to take the algebraic steps, you want to isolate X. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, what is keeping X from being alone? So I'm modeling the questions that I want them to ask themselves or look up if they don't know. Or of course, ask me if they don't know as their teacher. So I would help them reason through each step. What keeps X from being alone? Well, it's plus 9, right? Just looking at the left side. So how do you remove it? You subtract the 9. Okay, can you legitimately do that and have it still equal 12? It's like a balance, right? It equals. It's like a seesaw. So if you're going to take away 9 from one side, then you've got to take away 9 from the other side. So you subtract the 9 from both sides and you get X equals 3. But something I like to remind them, I mean, that's an easy problem. Don't forget to back up, look at the whole problem, and you could probably just ask yourself, okay, what plus 9 equals 12? Well, that's 3. And then you don't have to go through all the steps. So don't forget to back up, pull in, use common sense as needed. Okay, so I mentioned, noticed that it was a simple problem. So I want to teach that strategy. So sometimes I've seen students get bogged down when it's like, well, wait a minute, can you just look at this and tell what it is? And that really helped my kids in their fluency, math fluency, and my students, just to remind them, you get so move this here, move this there. And some problems are simple enough that you can just look at them. So anyway, okay, then I want him to relate it to real life. So we would go from incrementally from my doing it by myself, modeling it. That's one approach that I would use, to me asking them questions and they're answering incrementally until they were able to master the actual solving of the number problem. And then I would want to bring up real life problems and get them by taking steps. That's how I would achieve that. You take steps by asking them questions, by teaching them to ask themselves questions, by listening to, but it's the struggle, right? But it's not too much of a struggle that they don't like it. So knowing that balance of when the student is getting frustrated, you don't want that to happen, that it's too much. So you make it more simple, give them more help so that it's just the right amount of challenge, that they're learning and stretching, but not too much that they can't do it and get frustrated and quit and don't like it. So that's how I would do it, depending upon the feeling the student, asking the questions, having them ask the questions, creating a word problem for them, letting them help me create the word problem until they take more and more, capability, until they can make up their own world problem that has an unknown plus a number equals a given number. So that's how I would assess it, is in increments. And then, of course, working on fluency from there. Okay, so then the next day I want to review, see if they remember it. Sometimes you can learn something and then you get in a different room or it's a new day, got stuff on your mind, and you can't remember how to do it. At that point, I might have them look that up, asking them a lot of questions, teaching them to ask themselves these questions, and then we change it up. So yesterday we did the addition of an unknown. We created problems and solved them. You did that all by yourself. Okay, now let's take another operation, not the unknown and addition, but maybe the unknown subtraction. So we're going to introduce another problem. So we started out with 99 bottles of extra virgin olive oil, and somebody found out that it has the same chemical compound as ibuprofen, which is true. So the data shows that we now have 18 left. So I like to add facts of interest or importance. Okay, how many were sold? So do you want to tell me at this point? The more they know me and the more I know them, the more I can find out, what they can do themselves. How does that translate into math? And then again, always with the concept of, are you getting too frustrated or giving up? Jumping in to help, like you would teaching someone to swim. I teach swimming at the YMCA, so you want them to stretch and grow, but of course not drown. So, um, and I put on there that I'm enthusiastic, and I feel like right now I'm coming across as uh, more the option of serious and so forth. So, um, the more I get to know a student, the more we can laugh and about things as well. I did have one student that in math, she would work really hard, but some things were funny. Like if she said something and she wouldn't take herself so seriously. She took herself seriously enough that she could learn, but not so seriously that we couldn't laugh if she made a mistake or said something funny or I did the same. Okay. So, we work through the problems incrementally, like I said, and then we want to compare and to contrast with the ones from yesterday. Wrapping it up. So, how are you feel? Oh, at this point, I might do a check-in on the things we talked about since I get to in this environment, spiritually, emotion. I still might emotionally in a public school where I can't give them, I might help lead them to truth by getting them to ask themselves questions, right? But here I get to help out a little more. So I might ask, how are you feeling about it? Are you still feeling that you're bad at it? You feel like, okay, I'm getting this. So do a check-in on their feelings because that's important. Feelings can cause anxiety and come from thoughts. And so I want to work with all of the whole person so their mind is free to learn the concept. So I might ask them, are you thinking about it the way that I suggested to give you and I want to give them control and power. Um, always, I'm wanting to do that. So I would show the student how to look up standards. Maybe they feel like math is this endless sea that they'll never reach the end of. So if that's how they're thinking, just overwhelmed, then I want to break it down like from an educator's point of view. There are a certain number of standards, and you can just look up the standards and find videos and problems, and you can finish a whole subject standard at your own pace. So they don't feel like at the mercy of textbooks and the education system and teachers. And I want to empower them with how they can do that, how they can see an end, how they could look at a career, find out what they need for that, find out what kind of school they need, what kind of math they need, and they can see where they're going and not just feel like a baby put in a car seat and they have to go, wherever. I want to give them more control because people are usually happier that way if they can stop the thing that's bothering them or find relief in another way. So I keep those thoughts in my head um, and again, we are sitting on the world of information. Let's use it. So, uh, so this gives them, okay, I mentioned all of that. Oh, and at this point, I said, this train that's behind me, um, I forgot to mention this, that in whatever career you're in the developed world, there's technology, there's computerized and computer, the programming and all that comes from math concepts. Of course, they say AI is programming things now, but somebody has to program AI. So I think uh, that these are good concepts when you live in the developing world, even in the underdeveloped world. Um, that's the direction they're heading, right? So you'll be more helpful to people. Just gives you a perspective that can help you problem solve. Like when you know the chemistry behind cooking, then you can create food in a way that are salad dressings that taste better if you understand the chemistry and all behind it. So it gives you a perspective. That was another thing is, I want to talk to them, market the idea, basically get them on my side or the side of learning rather, just my side because I'm trying to teach them that, right? But if they're in ninth grade, they are thinking about other things and their reasoning. You want to embrace that and and reason with them to that point. So no matter what you're doing, math can come in helpful. I was mentioned carpentry, cooking, investment banking, accounting is definitely math, and it's a different kinds of math, but it's still that reasoning and problem solving. Um, so I mentioned this train behind me. That's the fastest train. We don't have one like that in the US. And it's not on wheels. It's run by magnetic repulsion, where like, when you try to put two south poles together, two north poles together, they reject each other, and that's how it levitates. And it doesn't need wheels, and it can go really fast um, as a result. Okay, sorry about that interruption. Um, okay, so magnetic repulsion. Math and science go together and can lead to a better understanding of the world around us and how it works. From there, inventions are created that make the world more convenient and also make your life easier. So the rest of the world, they are learning and they are advancing in math, the whole engineering of drones. And uh, I was watching a video on China exploring, the exploring the depths of the sea and how the sea bottom is carbon rich. And we want Christians to be in charge, people who are sincere and care about other people, of new inventions, new technology. I mean, there are a lot of good reasons to advance in math, and those are some. So, and if you are a person of faith, then you would want those who know. You would want to know as much as you can so you can help other people, basically, not so you can use it for selfish purposes. So, um, okay, so let's see. All right, so I've asked him about the mindset. We've gone through that concept. We've created word problems, and the student has created word problems and is able to write a word, think of a word problem, write a word problem. That would be the goal. Write the word problem, solve the word problem, tell me the questions they're asking themselves. Uh, you know, explaining to me the thought processes and solving the problem correctly. And that happens by incrementally reading the student's level of frustration and helping them with the areas where they're frustrated, not just giving them everything, but basically teaching them to drive. And then lesson 3 would start with the same kind of thing, either asking them for their own recall, allowing them to, and math builds. So you want to go back and see if they can remember, but allowing them to use their resources is important as well, as long as I know that's, where it's coming from and that they might not remember it. So finding out ways to help them to remember it, modeling again, modeling it to the point of mastery where they incrementally increase in their capability each step. So I might add a step to x plus 3x. Before we didn't have multiplication. So this poses new questions, right? They demonstrate one of the last 2 days, for instance, 2x plus 3x equals 20. What questions do we ask ourselves? What is the goal? We still want to get x alone because we're trying to find out what it is. And that's what it looks like in math. X equals. So what is keeping x from being alone? 2x plus 3x, that equals 5x equals 20. This is where a lot of students stumble, and they think they were supposed to subtract 5 to get x alone. So we compare operations. Why did we subtract before? Was anything right beside x, like stuck right to x, or was it separated with a sign? What does it mean when it's right next to it? It means it's multiplied, right? Okay, so how do we want to turn that number into 1x, because x is the same thing as 1x. How do we turn a number into 1? Do we subtract it? No, that gives us 0. Do we add it to itself? No, that would give us 10. Do we multiply it? No, that would give us 25. Do we divide? Oh, look, if we divide by 5, that gives us 1. So remember, what you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side to keep the statement true, which is an equal sign there. So if you divide 5 by 5, that gives you 1x. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Again, we have a simple problem. Don't forget that you could just look at it and ask yourself, what times 5 is 20, and come up with 4. We need to learn the steps for when we can't just do it that way. But again, for the easy ones, don't forget, you can, like speed read it through to help with their fluency. And then we continue to talk about, do check-ins, spiritual check-ins, and that, like, how's your faith? Oh, I mentioned before, I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but I wrote it and thought about mentioning it, that if they haven't grasped that thought that there is a reward from God, or grasped the things I've set before them, then it's a lack of belief and a lack of faith, at which point God still wants to help us. And in Matthew, like he says, the man says, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. Sometimes we do struggle to believe, even though we have the world around us, we have experiences day by day, but just like the examples in the Bible, we are human. We do stumble and fall and grow fearful, and we have emotions and we have thoughts, and take every thought captive. I mean, that's why we need a savior, why we need a redeemer. And so, because we do mess up. So if you're struggling and you can't quite grasp that belief, then ask God for faith. Of course, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. So the more that they are in the word, the more their faith will be strengthened. But also you can cry out to the Lord, help me believe that you're going to reward me for studying this. Give me wisdom and understanding. If you need me to do it more in like lesson format rather than just talking about what I would do, let me know, please, because I definitely want to be a part of what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.